Well, hey there, folks, and welcome to this week's episode of Jungle Drums. I'm on my own, I'm afraid, just due to some scheduling conflicts and last-minute changes. But hey, you know what? The show must go on, and we'll just try to blitz through this week's news as quickly as we can. As you can see, the Discord app stuff is back and working somewhat, but still not showing the correct amount of people online. I've tweeted at Discord, and usually they're really good about replying, but no idea what the deal is with that. I don't know if it's a case of just the way they've changed, the API or something, or if it's some kind of internal error. But anyway, hey, it's there, and trust me, there's more than 0 people online the Scholarly Gamers Discord server at the moment. Right, so this week's news, we'll start off with an article from VG247.com, and this is to do with World of Warcraft. And World of Warcraft subscription now includes access to previously released content. Now, if you're no stranger to World of Warcraft, you know that this is kind of what happens. I mean, I played Vanilla WoW and then the Burning Crusade and so on and so forth. And I actually left just before Cataclysm had came out. And then it wasn't that long ago that I actually went back to WoW just to kind of check things out. And because I'd activated, a subscription, I then had access to Cataclysm, Mists of Pandaria, and everything. So long-time WoW players shouldn't be surprised by this. But for those who've maybe, been out the loop for a long time, or likewise, if you've just never really kind of wanted to get into it, now's a great time to do so, because in anticipation of the next expansion, Battle for Azeroth, Blizzard has made all previous expansions free. The monthly subscription fee now offers access to all content up to and including Legion. If you go back far enough, you basically had to buy the base game and any and all expansions that you wanted access to. Blizzard used to always sell what they called a battle chest that would include the base game and all the expansions at a reduced price. But regardless, a purchase was necessary before you were able to play. So like even in my case, after taking that long break, it didn't change the fact that I owned World of Warcraft and 2 of its expansions. But what's quite interesting is Blizzard didn't actually announce this big news. No, instead, it was kind of like a ninja thing they did on the Blizzard store. You'd only see the option to buy a subscription for 1, 3, and 6 months. And the battle chests had, disappeared. The page now instead just says that all content is included and prices have not changed. However, you'll still have to purchase the Battle of Azeroth expansion separately if you want to access that new content. But then again, no doubt when the next expansion comes out, because let's be honest, World of Warcraft isn't going anywhere, despite it being out for absolute ages. You'll probably get that for free as well whenever the new one comes out. But the Battle of Azeroth pre-patch had launched just this week, bringing in all sorts of new content into the game in preparation for the expansion, which launches on August 14th. One of the nicest little changes I noticed, now this isn't, I'm not playing it, I don't, that's, it was a part of my life that I enjoyed, but at the same time, I was horrifically addicted to World of Warcraft. I don't want to go back to those days. But one interesting little change that I noticed just through other people's screenshots was they finally added in DirectX 12 support that a lot of long-time WoW players have been begging for ages. For the longest time, World of Warcraft didn't take advantage of newer hardware. And what I mean by that is it didn't take... for the longest time, it only used a single CPU core. It was on even older DirectX technology. And, it used to really, really irritate people that it didn't matter how beefy of a rig you had. The game sometimes still ran a little bit funky here and there. I know I myself noticed that, having a machine that was well above the recommended specs, and still every so often you'd get frame drops in cities and whatnot. Now, I don't know if the performance has improved, but I do know that, they've already optimized the game for multiple processors. I still don't think it uses any more than 2 or possibly 4 cores But the graphics side has always been kind of a big hindrance. It always just used DirectX 11. But finally, that DX12 is in there, so hey, hopefully you'll see some performance increases. And of course, remember World of Warcraft, once you start packing in all your different add-ons, right, all your overlays and your DPS meters, your heal bot, or whatever the hell you use, your custom frames, that affects performance as well. But yeah, World of Warcraft it doesn't seem to be going anywhere, which is really quite amazing. A game that's been out for that long is still as popular as it is. But anyway, there you go. If you want to get back into it, all you need to do is pay your subscription fee, and you will not need to purchase any of the previous content. But of course, you would have to purchase Battle of Azeroth if you want access to that content on August 14th. Speaking of access to content, this week had a big deal. Obviously, at the beginning of the week, Amazon Prime Day, and people were looking forward to some of the sales that were going to be happening. But unfortunately, Amazon didn't have a very good day because, according to The Verge, well, according to everyone that was on the internet, Amazon's website crashed as soon as Prime Day began. It was quite funny. I had noticed over here in the UK, from a browser, it would just, you got this error screen, and it had a picture of a dog, and it was actually really, really funny. Every time you refreshed or tried to access, you got these pictures, random pictures of these dogs. Sorry, something went wrong on our end. And there we go, there was Jaja. And then next time, something went wrong on our end. This is actually a mobile picture. I never had any problems from mobile. But anyway, the kind of irony is, of course, is that Amazon is known for its, AWS, Amazon Web Services. They offer their platform as a service. You can make your own web store, or even kind of, corporate infrastructure using their web services. And for their actual site to go down, on a big day like this, it's hilarious, honestly, when you look at the tech side of things. But, Prime Day, if you don't know what it is, it's a made-up holiday to try to boost sales. And, the outages in the States were quite prevalent. I know I had a bunch of buddies in Canada that were also hit. Over here, it was just here and there. Like I said, I had no problems accessing it from mobile. And my only problem was that it's always the same. Every year during Prime Day is just that time of the year where I don't actually have the cash just to go out and buy stuff. Because there were some crazy deals. The Elgato Stream Deck, for example, was heavily discounted. I believe the US prices is normally it's about $140, $150. It was down to $100. And same over here in the UK, it was down to about 95 quid. One item that had a huge discount was the Elgato 4K 60 Pro. Their big, beefy internal capture card that can capture 4K. That's usually, I believe, about 360 British pounds, and it had been slashed down to 257 or something like that. But yeah, there was all sorts of great deals. There was some of that really, really high-end monitors, that are around 1,000. They were down to around the 600 mark. And of course, all of Amazon's own products, like their Echo Dot, their what's the other one? The Echo Dot, the normal Echo, all those things, they were quite heavily discounted as well. So there was sales to be had. It was just the problem was that not many people could access the actual website. Now, what was interesting was direct links to products. If you happen to have that URL, you could access that no problem. But if you try to go to the main menu, that was when you were getting dogs such as Hunter popping up. And it was a bit of a shame. So a lot of shoppers had, issues accessing Amazon on Prime Day itself. And then finally, later that day, Amazon acknowledged the issue, writing on Twitter that many are shopping successfully, and said, look, hey, there's still 34 hours left on Prime Day deals. They did acknowledge that, yes, some customers are having difficulty shopping, and we're working quickly to resolve this issue. But they tried to focus more on, look, everyone else is having no problems, they're shopping. Because Prime Day is a big deal for Amazon. Last year, Amazon's Prime Day generated an estimated $1 billion in sales, which for 30 hours is pretty darn good. If you do the math real quick, that equates to about $34 million an hour. So there you go. But there's no doubt that heads rolled somewhere for a service like Amazon to have such an issue like that on their own Prime Day. There'll definitely be some people having to answer some difficult questions. But hey, hopefully you were able to grab something good during Prime Day. I know a couple of my friends were able to snag some things, including a Stream Deck. Anyway, maybe next year it'll be much better. Speaking of things that will be much better, a game that has been, in the headlines on and off, very, very controversial. And that, of course, is No Man's Sky. When No Man's Sky was approaching release, it was one of the most hyped up games that have been, in a long time. And then when it released, a lot of people were disappointed. Me personally, I think I didn't have any unrealistic expectations of it. And I pretty much got what I expected, and it was cool. It was a decent game. I was playing on PC, and one of the interesting things that happened with No Man's Sky is, a lot of people just said, okay, it's crap, whatever, and haven't touched it since. But there's been updates to No Man's Sky since then, and they've been game changing. I think the last one, or was it the first one? I remember I did a video a year or two ago about it. Pretty sure I deleted it. But they really, really changed the game. And so now, next week, the next chapter, so to speak, of No Man's Sky is arriving. We actually discussed this several months ago when we got the sneak peek at it. And this, of course, is Next. So this is from Polygon. And the No Man's Sky Next trailer shows off multiplayer, space fleets, and more. Next is basically going to be a major overhaul for the game, and if we just pull up this video, I'll mute it though. And we'll get a bit of gameplay here. One of the, obviously, a big difference you can see is you can actually see your character here, but even the graphics have been given a major overhaul. There's going to be a full multiplayer experience that lets, players team up with friends, interact with random space travelers. But you can see for yourself, just the actual engine itself has been given a huge overhaul. It was already, as long as you had the hardware, it was a good-looking game, especially on PC. Consoles, still looks good, but, PC was where the game really, really shone. And looking at this footage has, as you can imagine, has got a lot of people really hyped up for the game once again. The visuals, there's no denying they've been given just a massive update. They look so much better. I'm definitely going to be... I don't have the game installed right now, but I will be reinstalling it. Because I just want to start all over again, just to experience this new... basically a new game. But it's quite interesting, right? Because they've put in multiplayer, which, if you remember the multiplayer drama about how they never said it wasn't in there, right? They just said, the chances of meeting other people are so slim, right? We're talking about a procedurally generated universe, where you start is completely random, and the chances of two people meeting each other in that vast universe, is very, very unlikely. And then, what was it? Maybe the second week the game had been out, sure enough, two people had found the exact same planet, the exact same spot on said planet, and were like, yeah, we can't see each other. And then it slowly came out that, okay, yes, there is no multiplayer. And people were disappointed, they were obviously saying, this is bullshit, you lied to us. But no, so multiplayer is now going to be in the game. So you could team up with your buddies and try to explore the universe together. But likewise, you know, random folk might you might encounter them along your journeys, which could either help or hinder you. You could end up helping each other try to stay alive, or end up, you know, killing each other and trying to take their resources. You can build shelters or complex colonies that can be shared for all players. If you remember, one of the previous updates for No Man's Sky added in the base building ability, which is a really, really cool feature. It's pretty sweet, you know, like on a planet, you could just try to make a little kind of base. So now you can actually build bases together, you know, and then space battles, you know, are now in the game. If you think about it, all you could do with your ship for the most part was, you know, you're just shooting asteroids and whatnot. But now, you know, you can be a wingman for your buddies, or likewise a pirate trying to prey on other players. You can race your exocraft on planets. You know, you could even try to create race tracks if you think about it, right? If you're excavating and shooting things, or using, I don't know, I'm guessing using some of the assets from the base building feature. And then character customization, you can now personalize your appearance. I mean, you know, so they've added in a lot of things just there. But then when you get into the visual overhaul, the game's playable in first or third person, both on foot and on your ship. The space visuals are just, they're much more stunning. There's now, you know, planetary rings, the terrain generation and ground textures, water and clouds, they're all just making the environment pop. So it looks like it's going to be a really good looking game. Again, it was always decent looking, but honestly, this overhaul just looks amazing. The base building has been improved upon. You can build anywhere on a planet. The complexity and size limits, you know, they've added hundreds of new base parts, so really you could, if you want to make an entire planet and just cover it, you know, with a base, a city planet, so to speak, you could probably do that. And one of the coolest little changes is the ability to command freighters. You can assemble and upgrade a fleet of frigates and command them from the bridge of your freighter. You could send your fleet out into the universe, or deploy them to help you as you explore a specific system. The improved freighter base building allows a truly custom capital ship. Invite your friends aboard and take on challenging multiplayer missions from the Galactic Commission station on your bridge. It does all sound amazing, but then again, remember, this is a game that before it came out sounded amazing. But with these gameplay trailers, it looks like this time they're actually going to deliver on their promises. Now keep in mind, you know, this is a free update. If you already own No Man's Sky, you will be getting access to Next, the title of the update. And I would say, look, it's probably worthwhile giving it a shot. You know, I know maybe you've spent hundreds of hours exploring, or maybe you got tired of the game, but why not? You know, hey, if you've already got it, you're not going to lose anything except a little bit of time. Boot it on up, give it a try, and see if they can finally deliver on their promises. I know I will be. We'll just have to see how it all works out. Right, a little bit of tech news next, and this is from Tech Radar, and this is actually very specific to over here in the UK. And this is to do with Vodafone. Vodafone is one of our kind of biggest mobile providers over here, you know, for cell phone coverage. And Vodafone gigabit speed, gigafast broadband has just landed. Broadband speeds of up to 1,000 megabits for real. No, thank you. I don't want your inbox stuff. Right, so Vodafone has just announced that its new gigabit broadband is live, and it's currently pumping out up to 1,000 megabits to at least one family in the UK. The lucky family live in Milton Keynes, where this program has started to roll out. This 1 gigabit connection, to put this into perspective, here in the UK, we're relatively lucky. We have pretty darn good internet speeds. Like, even, you know, ourselves, we don't live in a major city. We're kind of, you know, in a smaller town that's relatively rural, you know, as far as like its surrounding areas. And, you know, we don't have super duper crazy speeds, but I mean, we're talking a download of probably around 80 and an upload of about 18 or 20. It's fine for us. Whereas if you go into the cities, yeah, a lot of folk have 100, 200, up and down. It's kind of the way it works over here. Most people, if you live in a large city, you have access to amazing internet speeds. But this whole gigabit broadband is definitely a new development over here. And so according to Vodafone, the gigabit connection is about 20 times the average speed. And to put this into perspective, the average broadband speed in the UK is 46.2. Now, I know some of my US friends and Canadian friends are probably, who live in rural areas, like, oh, we wish we just had that speed. But yeah, it's quite cool, so they've launched the gigabit internet over here. About 50 families down in Milton Keynes are going to receive the broadband as a test launch before it becomes widely available across the city. And Vodafone is saying, look, it's going to be possible wherever fiber optic cables, are. A lot of our infrastructure here in the UK has been upgraded over the years. You can't necessarily get fiber to the door, but for the most part, it's fiber to the cabinet is really, it's already quite saturated, with only a few areas still waiting for their turn to get it. But it's quite interesting when you look at some of the stats here. For the upload speeds, which is something here in the UK that is really hard to get decent upload speeds. Most packages will give you an amazing download, but barely any upload. And of course, if you're a content creator, whether that's making videos for YouTube or streaming, just as well as I do, you need that upload speed. I was in that boat. We had to actually phone up. We had a great package and said, hey, look, we need more upload. And, another end, they're kind of like, well, why? Oh, well, because we do this, this, that, and this. Oh, okay, yeah, cool. And, they had a package. Well, it was basically a custom package, right? It wasn't something they advertise. And, for an additional fee, we were able to pop our upload up a little bit. Because some of the speeds over here, you can get maybe a download speed of 100, but they upload something like 2.5 or 5, which is no good. And to put this into perspective, they've used this example of a 16 gigabyte folder of family holiday photos, which, judging by UK average speeds, would take about 5 hours and 44 minutes to upload. Whereas with the gigabit broadband, it would take around 2 minutes. So it's pretty neat. So there you go, Vodafone. I think they've been doing home broadband for a little while. A lot of the mobile companies over here have been offering home broadband to various parts of the country. So Vodafone, makes sense. They are also jumping on that bandwagon. But so there you go. I don't think we'll get gigabit anytime soon, but it'll be nice to see. It'll be, help everything out over here for sure. Right. I pulled up this next page, and sure enough, there's it's a Virgin. Okay, it's not Vodafone. It's a Virgin ad. Close enough. Right. Next article is from Variety.com. And, this one's kind of sad. It's a bit of a shame. This is to do with The Culling 2. The Culling 2 dev is pulling the game from Steam, Xbox, and the PlayStation Store following negative reception. Now, if you don't remember, was it last year, the year before, there was a Battle Royale game, slash kind of survival thing called The Culling. I remember I played it. They had like a free trial or a free, what was it like? You could play the first 10 hours, or was it as many as 10? Maybe it was 6. But anyway, The Culling, had been released in March 2016, and it gained some popularity. But let's be honest, it lost its player base to titles like PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, and then of course subsequently Fortnite. So in December 2017, all development of The Culling, because it wasn't a final release, it was, early access, the studio said it was halting development on the game, and they were going to be working on a sequel instead. So that right there is a little strange, right? A game that wasn't even finished, they say, right, we're chucking it out the window, and instead we're going to make a sequel. So that's exactly what they did. They started development on The Culling 2, which, again, Battle Royale game. It had some pretty cool elements to it. I know Scholarly Gamer, Matt, he enjoyed it. We had played a couple of times together, and he had some really good, opinions on how it did do some things differently. Yes, it wasn't perfect. There were some issues. But, he had a very good objective opinion of the original Culling. So anyway, The Culling 2 released on July 10th, right? That's only 10 days ago. And because it bombed, and when we say bombed, I mean, we're talking it bombed super hard. They're removing it from stores. There's an actual statement from the dev himself, and it says, "I want to apologize because when we got to the end of our early access run, you weren't happy with the state of the game. We weren't happy with our relationship with the community. We weren't happy with how you felt about the game. We weren't happy with the game ourselves, but we didn't see a path forward. So we turned it off and moved on to something else. And in retrospect, that was a mistake. It is clear now that The Culling 2 is not a game fans asked for, and it's not a worthy successor to the original. So with that in mind, we've decided that the best course of action is to take that game down off of store shelves." Whew, so there you go. So they're currently contacting Sony, Microsoft, and Valve to pull the game from all storefronts and ensure people who bought it get refunds. What's interesting is the studio also plans to resume work on The Culling. So yes, I know. Yes, I know your reaction just now. You're trying to get your head wrapped around this. Yes, you're absolutely right. They were developing The Culling. We're like, nah, forget about it. Let's make a sequel instead. The sequel's now bombed because they realized that the fan base actually just wanted them to continue what they were doing. So now they're completely binning The Culling 2 and going back to The Culling. Right? Have you kept up with this? Jesus. The day one version of that game is coming to Xaviant's test servers and will be free to play when it relaunches. It's no wonder that they're moving to a free to play model. When you look at how Fortnite has now grossed $1 billion US, and that's not Fortnite the game, but Fortnite Battle Royale, right? The free aspect of it because of its microtransactions. When you see numbers like that, it's no wonder that devs nowadays are trying to follow this free-to-play model. I mean, look at games like Warframe, which Warframe's been out for 5 years and some change. Yes, it's in the headlines recently, but, it's always been there, and they've always made money from that game. If anything, it's one of the most expensive free-to-play game you'll ever play, if you enjoy it, that is. World of Tanks is another prime example of that. But so there you go. So The Culling 2, it's quite interesting. They've said, it means all perks are coming back, the airdrops are coming back, combat's going back to its day one form. Literally every aspect of the game will be what you remember. So, see, I never played The Culling 2, but from what I'm looking at, from what I'm reading, it seems like it was a really, really different game that fans of the original just hated. So they've decided to throw it out the window, go back to their roots. And I think this says it all right here. And so, we took a game that you guys loved, and we changed it out from under you. And I want to apologize for that. We need our fans to trust us, and we know that trust has to be earned one step at a time. We hope that these first couple of steps are going to be clearly the right move. So there you go. Well, sweet. So The Culling is going to be free once they've kind of, done their bits and bobs with it. The Culling 2, however, is dead. If you bought it, you'll be getting a refund. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. So there you go. Right, last bit of news, and we'll talk about this very, very briefly. I only put this on because of a topic we had last week. If you remember just the other week there, we were talking about the new MacBook Pros and how they were going to be, they really, up to performance level, you could get a 6-core, 12-thread Intel i9 processor in there, which is, a crazy amount of horsepower. That's, fantastic for productivity. And if you've been paying attention to YouTube and even social media the last week, there's been some really, really interesting developments. So I grabbed this headline from Tech Republic, and the headline does say, really, laptop expert warns overheating could make 2018 MacBook Pro slower than last year's model. Now, if you're familiar with the latest and greatest Intel processors, you know they run hot, right? The Intel chips never used to have this issue. AMD chips were always, CPUs were always stereotypically, they had a higher power draw and they ran hotter. Whereas Intel had a lower power draw and generally ran cooler. But all this changed when they started to, basically cut a few corners. If you've ever looked at a CPU, when you look at it, right, I'll just use this, right? What you see is called the IHS, right? This is the integrated heatsink. It's that silver square, right? But what you don't see is that's just a cover. That's the lid for it. Underneath that will be the actual CPU die, right? Something that is considerably smaller. And this is the thing that is, your actual brain of the computer. Now, what they used to do was this heatsink, this integrated heatsink that they have, this basically used to be soldered or soldered, however you want to pronounce it, to that heatsink, right? So that way the heat would transfer to it. Well, in a cost-saving measure, that is no longer, actually soldered to the integrated heatsink. Now they use what's called TIM, thermal interface material, just like a crappy kind of sticker. Like the crap that you get when you buy a lot of heat sinks and whatever, and they come just with like that the stuff that's on there already. Well, that's what they've been using for their Intel chips. That is why delidding is so popular nowadays. If you delid, which that's removing the IHS, scrape away that crappy interface material and put in what's called liquid metal, that basically, is just a highly, highly conductive material, and you put that on it. People have seen, we're talking, 15 degrees in Celsius. I think it was as high as that of a temperature drop on Intel processors. So it's a big deal, huge deal. And then when you get into the realm of like i9s, with the i9, the more cores that it has, because remember the i9s you can get up to crazy amounts with an 18 core. Is that right? 18 core? I can't remember. But yeah. So MacBook Pros, they're super thin. They don't have super effective cooling in there. So sure enough, the 2018 15-inch MacBook Pro is throttling, right? It does not have the cooling to sufficiently cool the i9 processor. And to the point where, again, if you're familiar with how CPUs work, they have a base clock, and then what will happen is, as long as there is enough room left as far as thermals go and power draw, it will try to overclock itself. So like the i9 has a base clock of 2.9 gigahertz, and I believe it'll boost well into 4. I think that's right. Maybe even a little bit over 4. As long as you've got the cooling for it and whatnot. Well, in the MacBook Pro, the i9 can't even maintain the base clock speed. Because remember, your processor has automatically got these features built in, unless you disable them, which I don't recommend, unless you've got really, really super duper, water cooling or something, is it'll automatically throttle, and that means lower the speed of a processor as it approaches what's called the thermal limit. Let's say for argument's sake, it's 90 degrees Celsius. So what happens is if the temperature's rising towards that, it'll start reducing the speed in an effort to make it not hit. because if you do end up hitting it, then it'll really, really perform like crap. And then there's even another number, which let's just say for argument's sake is 100, that if it hits, then the computer will just turn off in an effort to protect the processor. But so yeah, the new 2018 Mac Pro, which looks amazing on paper and even aesthetically, you know, it's lovely and slim, it just doesn't perform. One of the interesting things was they did a test and they were rendering a 4K clip in Adobe Premiere, and the 2018 i9 MacBook was 5 minutes slower in rendering the clip than last year's model that has an i7. You know, which is amazing. So what this guy did, and there's screenshots and stuff out there on the internet. He did the test again, but this time he stuck his MacBook in his freezer, and oh wow, the render time dropped by about 12 minutes. It's thermal throttling, and it's just one of these things. I mean, when you see high performance laptops out there, let's be honest, we know they're thick, right? They're big, they're noisy, they use a lot of power, and MacBooks aren't. MacBooks are slim, MacBooks are elegant looking, and unfortunately, in this case, they've went with style over substance, and they're just not performing because of the thermal throttling. They're crap. It's a real shame, and no doubt, if you've spent that much money on, you know, effectively a mobile workstation, because again, consumers who are going to buy a MacBook Pro tend to be professionals, whether they're DJs, whether they're, you know, into art or development, you know, they tend to be pro users, and they can't deal with, you know, not having the performance they paid for. I don't think anyone would. So a real shame. So there you go. I just thought we had to bring it up after, you know, talking last week about, oh wow, they look amazing, they look great. Well, yeah, they do, but they perform like a bag of crap. Oh well. Anywho, that's going to do it for this week's news. Again, I just wanted to try to get through these things nice and quick. I should have a very special guest next week, unless something changes, but that's the way it is looking. So can't wait to have him on the show and have a good chat with him. In the meantime, look, as always, go visit the website, www.scholarlygamers.com. We've got news, reviews, articles. Just this week, the latest episode of Proof of Console dropped from our good friend Captain McMuffin. Look, no spoilers, just go watch it, right? Either whether you go to the YouTube channel and watch it there, or if you go to the website, you know, that's preferred, obviously, where you can have a little read about it. And, you know, if you do see an article or one of these videos and you want to comment on it, look, there's so many ways you can do that. You can pop into our Discord server and have a chat. We also have our very own subreddit where, of course, you're more than welcome to have discussions about any of these subjects. And of course, you know, everyone's on Twitter as well. Just search for that hashtag ScholarlyGamers. And then likewise over the weekend, if you need some entertainment, you can find a whole bunch of streamers on Twitch, just looking in the Scholarly Gamers community. Likewise, if you go to our website, we've got the streamers section of the site where you can see all of the streamers, who's online at the moment and whatnot, and, you know, get some entertainment. Well, anywho, do have a great weekend. I will catch you next week. It's finally starting to cool down a little bit up here. We've finally had a bit of rain after these crazy the summer heat wave, which, you know, for Scotland just isn't normal at all. But anyway, folks, catch you next week. Have a good one. Take it easy.